Okay. That is credits. You know, there is actually one question that nobody asked in this entire game. And it is probably the most important question. And that's, why does Professor Layton look like an alien compared to everybody else? Got that Lego head, man. Everybody else got a normal head, except for Luke. Luke don't got a normal head either, but everybody else got a normal head. But Layton don't. Don't understand. Don't understand. Alrighty. Professor Layton versus Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney has finally been completed. And I do gotta say, to open up things, this was a viewer requested game by Epic Otter. And thank you very much, Epic Otter, for the recommendation. If anybody else wants to recommend games, you can, if you're on the Twitch side, you can do ! Viewer requests to bring up some information and a list of games that I have. You can also do your own recommendations of the list. If you're on YouTube, just leave a YouTube comment or something like that. And, I'll do that. For overall thoughts, I went into this game assuming that it would be a Professor Layton game where I have to run around and do puzzles, and it would be a Phoenix Wright game where I would have to run around doing investigations, and then I would win court cases. I ran under the assumption that because the game had verses in the title, that, we would be pitted against each other.
Professor, I feel like I've just finished reading a really long story.
Indeed, Luke. I know what you mean. It certainly was an enthralling adventure.
I wonder how Espella and the others back in Labyrinthia are getting on. I'd love to go back and see them. Although, I'd rather not have to be sucked into a book to get there.
Perhaps we should ask Carmine to come along with us.
Great! It's a real relief he recovered from all of his injuries. But he was a bit put out when he found out you'd already solved all the town's secrets, Professor.
Well, we mustn't forget that we didn't solve them all by ourselves. We couldn't have done it without the help of our friends across the Atlantic.
I wonder what they're doing right now. Battling away in a courtroom somewhere?
I'd wager they may well be, Luke. At any rate, we must make our own preparations. There's a brand new case that requires our attention, and that means a brand new set of puzzles to be solved, my boy.
I'll finish my thoughts after they're done with all this.
What's the matter, Wright? Has the cat got your tongue? Or are you still in a holiday kind of mood? Perhaps your mind is as clouded as the English sky.
Any hints, Maya?
Not really. If only the professor were here. I think at this point you've got to use that patented spell of yours, Nick.
Patented spell?
Hello, Earth to Nick. Just when we think it's all over, you always use it to turn the tables.
Ah, got it. I just have to close my eyes and say the magic word. Luckily, I don't need a witch's scepter for this one.
Save the chit-chat for later, Wright? I've almost missed that utterly annoying spell of yours. Fine, let's hear it then.
Just take a deep breath and give it all you've got.
Well, here goes. Objection!
What a sucker. What a sucker. Alright, so I guess to resume, I went into this game thinking that Layton and I should probably reduce the volume. It's probably a little crazy. I went into this game thinking, okay, Professor Layton and Phoenix Wright, they're going to somehow get pitted against each other. And, you know, I didn't exactly know how it was going to work, but somehow Professor Layton was going to, like, solve puzzles or present puzzles, and we had to, like, court battle our way through the puzzles. And we had to do like these investigations into the puzzles. I don't know. I honestly, like, how do you cross over these two games to create a versus type game? The actual result of this game was, it's a Phoenix Wright game set in a Professor Layton world, and they just happen to have puzzles in the game. Is basically how I interpret it. And I don't think the implementation is... I don't necessarily dislike the implementation. I think the problem for me is that I've already exhausted myself with Professor Layton games. And what I mean by that is I've played 3 Professor Layton games now. And the thing that I enjoy about Professor Layton games is the puzzles. I like the puzzles. Except for the Layton puzzles. The story and how you go through the story and how you uncover the story and how it unfolds and Layton's attitude and all this other junk, like all that stuff, it wasn't fun for me anymore. Like in the middle, and that might be generous, but like in the middle of the second game that I played, and then by the third game, I just wanted to skip all the dialogue and do the puzzles. So I kind of had a similar outlook when it went into this game for the Layton side. But because they introduced magic here, and magic was actually working, I was like, oh, so because this is a crossover, they're actually going to do some crazy things. Like, magic is real in this world. We were actually sucked into a storybook. So they're going to break the mold and do completely different things. And it's true that they did that. But it ended up being that they kind of just distilled a Layton game and said, okay, what makes a Layton game? We have the insane twist ending. We have puzzles. And that's what a Layton game is. And then you move over to the Phoenix Wright side, and you have the investigations. Pretty much anything that wasn't a puzzle was effectively an investigation of some sort. Even though like it's very Professor Layton-y, it was still investigation-y. But they weren't like, it was more Layton it was more Layton investigation for a while until it became Phoenix Wright investigation. But like ultimately, the Phoenix Wright court cases, I think they were just too long, too drawn out, and too numerous, I think. I think there could have been one or less court battle that would have helped out this game immensely. It really did start to get exhausting. There were, like, yesterday, I think I was in that final courtroom section for almost 5 hours or something like that. It was insane. And then there were court battles. Like, it started off at a decent pace. Like, oh, I'm in this court battle for like 45 minutes or whatever. Like, okay. And then we go into part 2. It's going to be like another 45 minutes. Then it went into 1 hour and 30 minutes. Then there was 2 hours and 30 minutes. Then it was 4 hours. And I'm just like, holy cow, these cases are insanely long. And it doesn't need to be that way. And a large part of that is that my criticisms, this is all basically to say that my criticisms of Professor Layton games and my criticisms of Phoenix Wright games all carry over into this game, and they don't go away. I still don't like investigations. They approach investigations better in this game than they have in any other Phoenix Wright game that I played, which is only the first one. And so I applaud them for that. But the court battles are still, like, they're still the best part of the Phoenix Wright game. But if you make the court battles as long as they were today and previous court battles, like, you start losing the allure of it. It's a little too much for me. And so my overall thoughts on this game is that I started to enjoy aspects of it, but I think it started going downhill for me after the second court battle, if I have my court battles correctly. The first one was... No, so it would be the third one. The first one is in the real world. Then the second one is with the flower girl. The third one... Actually, it was the second one. It started going downhill the moment Amir showed up during the first trial of Espella being called a witch. Like, that's when things just started getting way too lengthy. And so I would ultimately say that I think the game, it's fine. This is one of those rare cases for me where, like, the journey for me wasn't great, but it was passable. And then the ending was just so unbelievably insane and off the wall that, like, normally I could just say, like, oh, you know, I enjoyed the journey, so it's fine. But in this case, it's like I went through 30 hours of all that so that you could tell me this ridiculous explanation for what's going on. It's absolutely ridiculous. I guess if I were to culminate everything into, like, a sentence or two, I don't dislike the game, but I didn't enjoy it as much as I could have. It's probably what I would say. This game does not make me want to play a Professor Layton game, and it also does not make me want to play a Phoenix Wright game, which was already my stance before playing this game. So It's either, ticked down an additional one slot or it has remained the same. Who knows? I will say, like, story-wise, when it came to the magic, like, I actually was intrigued. I really wanted the magic thing to work out. I like, magic is real in this world, and that's cool. And like, there's this mystery of Espella being the Great Witch Bazella, but I know it's actually Darkclaw. And so, like, I'm trying to figure out how I can possibly maneuver it so that I can out her as the Great Witch. And it was all working out for a while there. And then it just didn't. I really, I legitimately think this game would have been a better game, just a better game if it actually was magic. I as crazy as it sounds, magic is more believable than the explanations that they gave for why this stuff exists in the real world. Oh man, if this whole thing happened and they woke up from a dream, I would have been okay with it. Would have been totally fine. They woke up, they have like this brainwave machine, they're both side by side or whatever, and they're like, wow, that was a crazy dream, huh, Phoenix Wright? And like, yeah, Professor Layton, that was a crazy dream. We got to get back to work now. And you know what? I would have been cool with it. But, here we are. From the gameplay perspective, I don't think there were more than like 3 puzzles that I would consider Layton puzzles. The puzzles that just have the most ridiculous solution slash explanation to how to solve them, that it just doesn't make any sense. I feel like there weren't that many of them in this game, so I'm very appreciative towards that. This game also gives you a ridiculous amount of hint coins. I think the game started me off with 30, and I don't know why it started me off with 30, but like by the end, I had more than 150, and I had used of those 150 like 40 or something like that. Primarily, I used a couple on some puzzles. Some puzzles were a little too much for me. But I think the majority of my hint coins were used on court cases because the logic used to progress the court case was not anything that I could possibly think of. Or I was put in a scenario where I needed to make sure that I got the right answer because the credibility system in Phoenix Wright is, in my opinion, not a great system. I understand that you need a punishment for not getting like objectionable things correct and whatnot, but there needs to be more leeway with it. Someone in chat, I think, mentioned yesterday that when Professor Layton shows up and takes the Inquisitor side, that they were surprised that my credibility didn't refill then. And I think that's a great compromise, my credibility should refill after certain key points during the trial. If you get a game over and you did not save, the time sink for that is insane. Just think if I didn't save throughout that entire final court battle, like in between the chapter ends, some of those sections are like 3 to 4 hours long. And then you expect a player to redo that entire thing? It's insane. Also, the flashing white lights in this game. I have no idea how that's not an epilepsy trigger for people, or maybe it is. And, the developers just don't care. Maybe they don't thought about it. I don't know. But the fact that that's in the game is actually kind of crazy. And, I feel bad for anybody that has epilepsy and can't play this game because of that. It shouldn't be in there at all. It's not necessary. Thinking off the top of my head, I don't think there's anything left for me to say. I guess if the developer is watching, I think this is just another scenario for me where I think the Layton fandom knows exactly what they want. They want Professor Layton games, and that's exactly what they get. If you like Professor Layton games, you're going to like every single Professor Layton game that ever comes out, because it's a bunch of puzzle solving and ridiculous stories and things like that. If you like Phoenix Wright games, I feel like you're gonna like this game as well. The thing is those games have fallen out of favor for me, and so this is just one of those scenarios where this game just didn't end up being for me, really. And I guess it was just always destined to not be for me, because, after playing the first 3 Layton games, I was like, I'm kind of sick of that. And after playing the first Phoenix Wright game, I was like, this is cool and all, but it's a visual novel, and I'm not really a fan of visual novels. And the court battles are cool, but the investigations are not. So, here we are. So yeah, I guess to reiterate my overall thoughts, I think the game is constructed well, but it's just not my type of game, regrettably. And that's going to wrap it up for my thoughts on the YouTube side. So, yeah, let me mark that. Forgot that I needed to finish this. Well done, you just cleared the game. You may now make a special clear save data. Given the choice of 2 starting locations. First is when the underground ruins. From there you can be able to access the town and wander freely, searching for hidden coins and unsolved puzzles. Climax of the epilogue. This is ideal for those who would like to experience the game finale one more time. You'll be able to restart with maximum credibility. Also, given you've run short this time around, you have a chance to pick up those vital pickerats you missed. Thank you. We can save right there. 4 to 55.